So welcome back to Everything Marketplaces. We're talking with founders and leaders on some of today's top marketplaces. So this is episode 63, and I'm really excited to welcome on Andrew Gazdecki, who's the CEO of MicroAcquire. So if you're not familiar with MicroAcquire, it's a startup acquisition marketplace that's recently raised over $6 million from some top investors like Bessemer Venture Partners, Naval Ravikant, and Remote First Capital. So Andrew, welcome to the group chat, and it's definitely great to have you join us here today. I've been following along with you and your journey building MicroAcquire for a while now, so I'm really excited to learn more about it. You do have a really interesting background, though, as an entrepreneur before starting MicroAcquire, so I think that might be a great starting point for our chat today.
Yeah, well, first, thanks so much for having me, and thanks to everyone joining and taking time to listen to me talk. It's kind of humbling. In terms of my story, how much time you got? You want the 1 minute version, 5 minute version?
We can go for the 5 minute version. How about that?
All right. So yeah, I've been an entrepreneur kind of my whole life. Part of my story is I grew up pretty poor, and so you see a lot of founders creating startups today, and it's trendy and it's cool and blah blah blah. For me, entrepreneurship kind of saved me. It was more of a survival mechanism where I didn't come from a lot, and so I had to hustle to just from an early age. I had like eBay store when I was like 13. A funny story there. I'm family friends with the former president of PayPal, Scott Thompson. And when I met him, I said, "Hey, I've been like a PayPal user since I was like 15. He's like, "You got to be 18. And I was like, "Just kidding." And after that, I used to do this thing where I would start new companies every summer. Some of them were successful. Some of them were just for fun. Some of them had no business plans. So I have a number of like failed startup side projects, too many to probably even count. I'm mostly known for, I don't know if I'm mostly known for it. It's maybe not the best term, but I bootstrapped a company called Bizness Apps to about 10 million in annual recurring revenue. It was a no-code do-yourself app builder. So that was lightning in a bottle. I was right place, right time, obvious problem to an obvious market. And we were very early. So early we almost developed a BlackBerry version of our apps. Glad we didn't do that. I actually live next to the BlackBerry building now, and sometimes at night I see the lights on, and I'm like, maybe I should buy some stock. They're doing something, but probably not. So sold that business 3 years ago to a private equity firm, ESW Capital. And that was kind of like my life-changing exit that really, that was like my holy shit moment. Like, whoa, like ran the business for a decade, successful outcome all around. Terms of the deal is all cash. We did a stock purchase agreement. I typically don't talk about this, but I've shared it on like 2 other podcasts, so I'm a little bit more open. What else? Benefited from QSBS. They bought the cash on hand. We had about 2 million cash on hand, which is interesting. People don't know that like other companies will buy cash that you have, and the benefit of that is they give you a 1x multiple. And typically in scenarios like that, if you have cash on hand during an acquisition, it's dividended out to all shareholders, but you're taxed at 40%. And so by putting it on at the purchase price, we were taxed at just 13% state tax, no federal. So after that, I started a blockchain trading company for some reason, which was very challenging. We were trying to speed up transaction times on the Ethereum blockchain. I've been a cryptocurrency person like for a long time. Candidly, I got into Bitcoin through the Silk Road. Basically logged, I didn't buy anything. I just like read this. It was on a magazine, and it was like this private internet with this internet money. And before that, I had this is embarrassing, but I had a World of Warcraft website that helped you buy gold. It was an affiliate website. So I was like, digital gold sounds like World of Warcraft gold. Bitcoin, what is this? So I bought like let's call it like 400 Bitcoin for like $20,000. And then I sold it for like 23,000. I thought I was a genius. I have many stories of that. My Coinbase account like makes me cry. That taught me to think, long term with like investments and stuff like that. So after altcoin, we built some pretty groundbreaking IP. We did the first atomic swap, so the first cross-chain trade without a middleman between the Bitcoin blockchain and Ethereum blockchain. We open sourced that, and then we were working on a framework called Plasma, which basically would bring dial-up speed or broadband speed to Ethereum transactions using like side chains. And we ran into a couple issues during launch where, as this was in 2018 when the SEC started like fining companies for ICOs. We didn't do an ICO, but they gave a federal charge against one of our competitors because the first application for instant transactions on the Ethereum blockchain was going to be a decentralized exchange, kind of like Coinbase, but without like a single point of failure. And then we were like, yeah, we don't like crypto that much. So I got on the phone with the SEC and was like, hey, we want to be compliant. We do not want to break any laws. And they were actually really nice. They were super nice and they were super knowledgeable. So I tried explaining to my mom what I was doing with altcoin. She's like, please just stop. Like, I'm so lost. But they like knew, and they like had tons of questions about Plasma as a framework. And so sold that company to B&K to the Future. We did a little bit of a pivot. So this is kind of like a acquisition strategy that we did where since we knew we weren't going to launch the exchange, because we found ourselves really not building a tech company, we were building a regulatory compliance company, like chief compliance officer, money transmitter licenses. Like basically we'd have to get like certified like a stock market, and that was going to cost like $10 million. So we figured it'd be better to sell the assets to a company that already had that regulatory approval in place. And so we did. And that was so sold two companies within a year. So Bizness Apps and then Altcoin within 12 months. Altcoin was a smaller outcome, but not bad for a year's worth of work. And then after that, I was actually I went through this phase where I was like, maybe, I don't want to be in charge of everything. Maybe why don't we take a shot at being like number 2 at a company? So I joined a company called Spiff, a CRO, because it was getting bad. After I sold my second company, I had nothing to do. I had no new ideas, and I don't do earnouts when my companies have been acquired, just because I know I'll quit within the second month and then I don't get anything. So I was out within 30 days on the second one. I was out within 90 days on the first acquisition. I became a top 100 Madden player. My wife was like, this is bad. Andrew, stop playing. To become a top 100 Madden player, you have to play like 10 games a day. Like I was just playing, and I was really good. I played with the Falcons. So a little bit about, I still love playing Madden. So if anyone likes to play Madden, my my name is Mantic Mermaid 46. It was an auto-generated name. Is like I get made fun of all the time for that name. But anyways, started mentoring startups, came across a company called Spiff, which helped automate sales commission calculations for large sales teams. And I had previously used their competitor, their big clunky competitor, exactly at my first company, Bizness Apps. Fell in love with the product immediately. And I was going to be an advisor. And I listened to one sales call, and I was like, okay, I can maybe help here. And stepped into that role. They were at around zero revenue, helped them grow to about 2 million. They raised a Series A from Naval Venture Partners, recently raised a Series B from Lightspeed Partners. I don't know, VCs, just whatever. And on the side, I was working on MicroAcquire. Became a dad during this time period. Launched MicroAcquire. Was leading a full sales team and a marketing strategy at a venture-backed company. And then it got to the point where MicroAcquire was getting some traction that I said, I like working on this more. I'm an entrepreneur. I feel more comfortable. I have more fun working on my own businesses. So you guys are good. You can hire, you got money. You can hire people smarter than me now. Peace. Obviously help them find a replacement for me, and told them handed over the hardest part about being a sales leader is earning trust of your sales team. So I helped with that transition and all that fun stuff. And then I've been focused on MicroAcquire I guess for about a year full time now. Quick stats there. We've done hundreds of acquisitions. I don't know the exact number. 300-400. We've done over 100 million in GMV. And largest acquisition, probably 7.5 million. We had one this weekend that was 7 million. Dozens in the 7 figures, even more in the 6 figures. Average acquisition size is about 500,000. And then lots of little ones too. Lots of little, we have a micro SaaS section, which is my favorite. Just good products, a little bit of traction, great for people just looking to get into, acquisitions or learn. And love to surf. Grew up in Southern California. My favorite color is blue. How was that?
I love it. So that's the first time we've heard the favorite color. So well, wow, yeah, you have quite the entrepreneurial background. So there's a lot we could talk about there, some other time. But for the sake of talking about marketplaces here today, I'd love to go back to the earliest days with MicroAcquire, and then what were the first steps that you took to start it as a marketplace?
Hit the phones, called everybody. I think that's one thing that I always, when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, their dream is to build this vending machine where you don't have to do anything. No one asks you any questions. People just sign up. It's free trial. They upgrade, and it just sits there and it just grows. But that's not the reality unless you're like Calendly or something like that. So I called every VC I knew, every accelerator I knew, every private equity group I knew. So I got buyers on board. And then I reached out to a lot of startups, walking them through the product, onboard, because MicroAcquire was kind of jank when I first launched it. Not bad, but there was still a lot of missing components, and there's a lot of things I didn't know, how should I format these listings? What are some pains or ways I can help founders connect with buyers easier? So, seeded the marketplace a little bit, probably got 20 startups in there, something like that, and then had 100 buyers registered, and then launched on Product Hunt and got product of the day. So that little spark kind of started the fire. But even still after that, I took every phone call, anyone who wanted to talk about any buyer, any seller, just gathering as much feedback and just building, I guess, like these relationships too. Um, so I would say that's the secret thing. And then immediately also started focusing on other channels like SEO, which I highly recommend starting early. Um, big on social. Um, I don't know how much impact that has yet because we can't track it. We're about to be able to. Um, and then I wrote a book on acquisitions, lots of content. But yeah, I think the main thing in terms of getting started was not being afraid to just talk to people, like get their feedback, let them tell you it sucks. Like, and when they tell you it sucks, like like take that as a compliment. Like, you don't want everyone to just say it's, hey, it's great, it's great, it's great. You want to hear, Bill Gates has a good quote. Bill Gates has kind of done some weird stuff recently. But anyways, he has a quote like your best your most frustrated customers are usually the best source of feedback or something like that. And I truly believe that. So yeah, I was really looking for harsh feedback on like what would work. And candidly, a lot of it from like the major PE firms was like, that'll never work. Like you're competing against like cold emails and this and that. And um, so, even though I even heard, some people saying they were launching like the same thing and like so I was like, okay, game on. Sounds like there's something here. That was probably the best feedback I got is like, we're working on something similar. And I was like, all right, there's something here. Other people believe in this market. I mean, that feedback right there was, um, someone might, some are big players. I won't say the names, but people I admire and respect, bigger social followings, more capital than me. Literally like we're launching something similar. And even still I push forward. And yeah, so I hope that's helpful. But long story short, it was really just connecting with as many people as I possibly could. Joining every podcast I was invited onto. And just a lot of hard work. Like a lot of people think launching marketplaces is like really easy. You just kind of launch it, have an SEO strategy, and then people just start coming. Like I had to brute force MicroAcquire to work. Like like convincing a startup founder to list their startup for sale on a marketplace is kind of crazy. And so I just kind of pushed that boulder up the hill. And once you kind of get that boulder up the hill, you start to see this flywheel effect. So now my mornings every day, I don't usually talk to founders now due to time constraints, or even buyers for that matter. I have a templated email. If you reach out to me and you've gotten one, I apologize, but it's gotten to a point where it's humanly impossible for me to speak with every buyer and seller because we have such a strong flywheel created. So every day I wake up to about 50 startups submitted with completed profiles, and we go through those and we determine which ones are good fits for MicroAcquire, which ones aren't. Give them a reason for, if they're not, prepare their profiles if they are ready, and then we take them live. So long-winded answer, Mike. I hope that was also helpful. I talk a lot. I just drank a ton of coffee. So feel free to interrupt if you guys like have questions, like as I'm chatting.
This is definitely great. Yeah, so I did want to mention, from the outside looking in, it seems like along the way, you've been a solo founder, definitely brute forcing it. I was part of the Facebook group kind of early on and noticed that was incredibly active too, that you ran there. So could you maybe share a little bit more about how you've kind of thought about building community?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of talk about building community. But the way I define that is, instead of building a community, I'd recommend building fans, like people that are real supporters of what you're doing and believe in what you're doing. That's kind of my take. Like just said, hey, like let's kind of test this out. We're going to be doubling down on community where we, have, more discussions around like, hey, I'm looking at this deal. How should I structure it? This was some things I have concerns about it. So other people in the community can, help each other, because it's such a powerful moat when you get that going. But you need these people to like really love your company to participate in your community. So that's why I say fans, not customers. So we just try to give away a lot of value. But candidly, right now, our community strategy is pretty light. The Facebook group has about 2,000 members in it. We mostly use it for actively posting new deals. And then if people want to post questions, those are totally fine. We share podcasts in there and stuff like that. Lots of good conversations. But yeah, for marketplaces, if you have a passionate community, definitely find a way to get them all in a room. Facebook groups might not be ideal. But for me, it was like one of those Thursday night, like, let's just launch this. And then I just did. And then we're looking at some other more robust solutions that I think would be better. But yeah, huge fan of community. I think that's a great way to build a moat around your marketplace.
Awesome. Yeah, I did want to talk about a point. As a marketplace yourself with MicroAcquire, since you're non-transactional right now, I wanted to touch on the subscription model that you use for revenue right now, and then maybe learn a little bit more about how you're thinking about adding value, to both sides through your marketplace in the future.
Yeah. So right now, the only business model we have, which is kind of funny how I thought about it, we charge buyers a small annual subscription to contact sellers. So you can think of MicroAcquire as a music car reference. I'm terrible. My team tells me all the time, I'm terrible with analogies, but it's kind of like a Ferrari dealership. You can go in, you can look at the cars, but you don't know who the owner is. If you have questions about like the mileage or, how's the engine been maintained, you have to pay for that access. So you can come in, you can look around, you can window shop all you want, but to actually contact a founder, you have to pay for that. And that was actually feedback from a user. So going back to always talking to customers, we had founders that were receiving like 100+ requests. And so to help, separate, serious buyers from the term is tire kickers in the industry, which is just people that are completely not serious. They're just kind of looking around. Put that in place. And the response has been phenomenal. And moving forward, we want to get closer to being actively in the transaction. So we've since hired, which is a big change for MicroAcquire. So we've hired an in-house business broker and M&A advisor. We're working on hiring in-house legal counsel. Might have announcements around those pretty soon, maybe today. Not like today, but I might get like the thumbs up from the attorney we're looking to potentially bring on board. And from there, our model is we're building out an M&A directory. So we want to consolidate this fragmented market. Right now in the market today, you have maybe 2 or 3 brokers. Their main value proposition is typically, we take care of everything and we can help you sell your business for more. There's no data behind that proves either of those, aside from the fact that they'll do anything. And so we want to bring trust, transparency, and data to these, acquisitions, where we can show where, what sort of extra EV does a certain broker bring. EV stands for extra value, because that's literally the main pitch of a broker, is like, we can sell for more. And typically that's not true. I have a plethora of examples where a startup listed on MicroAcquire, worked with a broker first, got like half in terms of like valuation from a broker, sold for twice that on MicroAcquire. because brokers, their incentive is to sell the deal as quickly as possible. And so they're going to price it down to a point where it will sell as quickly as possible, almost to the point of a fire sale. And so we're building MicroAcquire with founders in mind. So we want founders to get the highest, acquisition price for their business. We want to give them all the resources and tools that they need to transact depending on the size of their business, whether it's 100K a year in revenue all the way up to 10 or even 50 million is kind of our goal. And so to do that, we're building a directory full of the best M&A advisors, the best business brokers, the best accountants, the best due diligence experts, even thinking about things like wealth management if you're successful in selling your business. So you'd be able to hire these individuals at a lower rate than typical brokers. So typical brokers today will charge up to 15% of a deal, which is like a seed round. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we think we can get that down by bringing, just making the acquisition process more efficient. Instead of going live in 3 months with a broker, we can get you live in a day. And then from there, you can work with someone in our directory to help you with negotiations, improving your profile. Maybe you have a messy P&L you need some help with, so you need some accounting help. All the things I wish I had when I sold Bizness Apps, because when I sold Bizness Apps, I didn't use an investment bank. I had a friend that was an investment banker, and he just gave me some light advice, like, hey, I always say, like, he told me stuff like, just go to bed, like, just don't send that email, like, just sleep on it, or that's a normal due diligence request, because the startup landscape is full of information about how to raise a bunch of money, how to hire a bunch of people, like everything except for probably the most important part of the founder's journey, in my opinion, which is the exit. I built Bizness Apps specifically as an asset to sell. I'd raised $100,000 for that business, so I had a fiduciary duty to show a return to those investors. I could have cash flowed the business, but we got a great offer and it worked out well. But yeah, so that's the thought, is where you'll be able to hire these professionals, people from Goldman Sachs, like Morgan Stanley, like real investment bankers, very experienced M&A advisors. And then we're going to bring transparency and trust to those people, because when I worked with my M&A advisor, investment banker friend, he was just the only person I knew. Like, I don't know. And then the law firm, also we're going to have M&A legal counsel in the directory as well. And the way I started working in that law firm was a reference as well, like, just use them. I was like, okay. So we're going to have reviews and ratings, and you can get really specific, like for Bizness Apps, as an example, being a no-code app builder selling to SMBs. I would have loved to hire someone that maybe had recently done a transaction with GoDaddy or something like that. Reviews from entrepreneurs. What deals have they closed? What is their pricing model? Is it hourly? Is it flat rate? Giving entrepreneurs like all the, basically like reshifting the power back to founders and startups and not buyers. So MicroAcquire is do not go to MicroAcquire if you're looking for super cheap deals and they've been crushed down to the point where like the valuation tool is profit times 4 or whatever. We're looking to build a place for entrepreneurs to have real life-changing acquisitions and all the tools they need to accomplish that. So we're building MicroAcquire for founders, not buyers. That's a very big distinction. And we feel the other players in the market focus on buyers more than sellers. And so we're flipping the script. And that's why MicroAcquire has been essentially free and will always be free. So moving on to, how are we going to make, like, we just raised a bunch of venture capital. So we probably got to, we're not going to get there $290 a year at a time from the buyer subscriptions. So our plan from here is we're going to be basically taking commission from broker commissions. So if we have a broker that works with a business that comes on a MicroAcquire, and they charge a 5, 6, 7% commission, we're going to take a commission or referral fee off of their commission. And so eventually we want to build MicroAcquire to a point where brokers come to MicroAcquire to list their deals, because at its core, MicroAcquire right now is kind of the largest database of software buyers in the world. Everyone from corporate dev teams to CEOs of public companies, second-time entrepreneurs, like every private equity group you could possibly imagine. So again, another really long-winded answer, Mike. Sorry about that. Please cut me off if I'm going off the rails and answering questions in advance, but I hope that's helpful.
That was very helpful. And that was a perfect segue into something I wanted to bring up, which is the recent raise that you completed, and big congrats on that, by the way. So I wanted to ask about that, and when that decision was to raise, and just learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story behind it. So to start things off, not a fan of celebrating fundraising, because really what I did was I signed on the dotted line, like, I'm gonna help hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs get acquired. Like, this is my Mona Lisa. This is the business like I am absolutely in love with, and I want to swing for the fences. And for me, the decision was a little easier because I've had a couple wins in the past. I don't have to worry about like a mortgage or like really anything financially. So I feel more comfortable taking these big swings. I always recommend to founders. I had a tweet recently, yesterday, that just said, like, I highly recommend bootstrapping a company to a few million revenue, sell that business, and then swing for the fences on your next business. Like, business ideas are endless. And so don't fall in love with your business and think you're going to hand it down to your children, because you're definitely not. You're going to be like Bizness Apps, as an example, has been disrupted like 8 times over and over and over, like faster app builder. Like, there's probably another app builder you can think of that is, much better. Got a question here. Let me tell you, does that change the dynamics of fundraising with wins on your belt? Absolutely. It definitely makes it easier to fundraise, because you've shown that you're not going to make a lot of mistakes that first time founders make, because you kind of already have those battle scars and you kind of know the ones to avoid. But the way the round came together was Jeremy Levine. I've known him for about 6 years. Met him at In-N-Out. Didn't know who he was at the time. He just needed to ride to the airport. And Jeremy Levine, he flies under the radar, but he's a gangster. Like, he sits on the board of Shopify, Yelp, Pinterest, probably Google. I don't know. He's the most humble, like, helpful investor I could have ever asked for. So I optimized for the relationship, didn't optimize for valuation. And then I really wanted involved founder of AngelList. So got him involved, and Andreas Klinger, who's the founder of Remote First Capital. Because really what we're trying to do is, you have Product Hunt for discovery, AngelList for investing, and then I see MicroAcquire for exits, the end of, the founder journey. And then after that, we had so many people reach out to invest in MicroAcquire prior to that. So that negotiation with Jeremy, I turned him down like 3 times. I said, no, I'm just going to bootstrap this one. And then he kind of just said a one-liner that kind of hooked me. He was like, listen, Andrew, like, I really want to work with you. Like, you're really onto something big here. And I'm going to add, I promise you, I will add 10% of value for your business, and I'll give you $2.2 million. So we raised 2.8 at a 22 million post. And I was like, that sounds pretty fair. And he definitely has added way more than 10% value. So we went back to investors that showed interest, because I also wanted to have a big group of entrepreneurs on the cap table. for deal flow, for feedback, for, credibility, and just early supporters of the product. And this isn't to say that MicroAcquire is like the most amazing company, but a lot of our users are angel investors. They are venture capitalists. They are private equity individuals. And so I kind of just made a list of like my dream team investors, people that I really thought would add a lot of value to the business. And not a single person said no. So we raised an additional 4.1 million in about a week, which is crazy, and very, very humbling as well to see. And that was a moment where I was like, wow, so we're like, the startup community really wants this. And I owe it to, founders across the globe to give this my best. And so, sure, it's on a little bit of equity, but I believe this to be something that can truly change lives. Like, we want to pay for weddings, we want to pay for down payments on houses, we want to pay for, all this stuff that, like, we want to pay off debt, like, buy your mom a house, like all the stuff you do when you get acquired. We have the opportunity to help entrepreneurs do that and educate them. So when they go and talk to buyers, I always say, as an entrepreneur, you're at such an information and experience disadvantage when you're talking to potential acquirers, where for them it's Tuesday. Like, they're looking at 50 different companies, but for you, it's the most important event of your life. Like, you're freaking out, you're nervous. Every word you say, you're like, should I say that? Should I not say that? Like, I've been there. Like, literally, I've typed out emails during acquisitions where I'm like, I'm going to sleep on this one. It's such an emotional process. And so we want to educate entrepreneurs on, like, what is due diligence? What are the legal steps? How do I prepare? How do I get more offers? How do I attract buyers? So I've created a whole course. If anybody wants to check that out, Mike, I can send you the link. And we're going to keep building on that in terms of like common deal structures, how to value your SaaS company. Also applies to marketplaces. We sell a ton of marketplaces on MicroAcquire. Yeah, so total capital raise 6.9 million. We're stopping there. And the cool part I do want to add, though. So yeah, raising money, cool, blah, blah, blah. Not cool. Don't recommend raising money. Do not do it. Just don't do it. Because the longer you wait with bootstrapping, you want to raise money when you feel like you have a rocket and you're putting gas into that rocket fuel, and it goes up. You do not want to raise money when you're raising the money to build the rocket. That's not good. So I felt confident, like, okay, there's something here. Like, deal flow is through the roof. Total revenue of startups combined on MicroAcquire has passed 500 million. So we're really starting to, become one of the biggest, acquisition marketplaces, and we want to accelerate that growth. So it made sense. Shoot, what was my point that I was going to make? I totally lost it, but it was a good one. So sorry about that.
Yeah, that was a great about the rocket fuel. So I think that's where it was. But yeah, well, cool. So I feel like you and I could go on for quite some time, and we have a few questions. So I think we're going to jump into group questions if that sounds good to you.
Works for me.
So hey, Maxine, did you want to jump on?
Yeah, I don't even know where to go now. Every paragraph I have a question with, or every thought chain. But maybe on the last one, I feel like the way you raised from the community as well as from relationship optimized individuals. Could you give me like a better, like, I'm hearing a lot about user owned networks, and again, watching Gumroad raise from their community and be able to kind of build based on the buy-in from their community before, just like trend. And like, to me, this is just the smartest way to increase the pie, is giving ownership to the users. So yeah, what was your, maybe just like more thoughts on, is what you have done innovative, or are lots of people giving their communities the opportunity to fund their round?
Good question. First question, I've seen a lot of other companies doing this. I did it, I think, in more of a unique way. Like I didn't open up like a WeFunder page. Disclosure there, I'm a small investor in WeFunder, so go use WeFunder. They're great. But I wanted, it was invite only. So I just wanted, because I didn't want like 1,000 people on the cap table, just because my time is already limited. I wanted people that could add value. Not saying that other, customers wouldn't add value, but I wanted like my dream team. And so I put that together, and I wanted to do it quickly, because fundraising is very exhausting. I wanted to get back to executing. But yeah, I think it's a very powerful way to like if you can involve people who have built businesses. They provide the best feedback. Someone will give you a 5K check, but they'll give you like 500,000 in value, like connections. Like some of our most helpful investors are they put in like tiny checks. They just love the business and they want to help. And I think that's been the most special thing. It also adds a lot of credibility to the brand. You have a lot of people saying like, this is something we also believe in. And I think that credibility just gives you confidence that you're really onto something. So I highly recommend it. And I highly recommend going through WeFunder. They do have a great process. I'm also an LP in Calm Capital, formerly Earnest Capital. And they're doing a WeFunder raise. I think it might have closed, but if anyone needs like an intro to someone at WeFunder, I can connect you with Johnny. He's the head of financing, fundraising. But yes, I think it's a great approach, and you can also get great terms too. When you do a price round with a VC, you get some controls in the business, which is understandable for the amount of capital they're putting in. But yeah, I am a big advocate of involving your community, just creating a passionate, like I keep throwing around this term called micro mafia. Just a group of passionate users that just support us and motivate us, and that gets us going every day.
I love that. Can I ask one more question? In
Of
terms
course.
of timeline, I love your answers, by the way. Also, I would really like to read a blog called Micro Mafia. I think it's good. You said like to get to where you're at stat wise, did that take you 1 year? That's it to get to your gross market value? What was it, 500 million?
So we officially launched January of 2020, so about a year and a half.
Okay. And do you think that was like, you knew what to do? This is your you've been here, you've worked this, you kind of know the steps, and you're able to create that much value that fast? Or
yeah, I think one big thing about successful startups is you always want to have a specific insight that others don't. Now, that's not a defensible moat, but if you press on it hard enough for long enough, it becomes one. And I think my specific insight was there's a ton of marketplaces full of junk and not specific to startups or acquisitions. It's to buy an online blog or an online affiliate thing with a bunch of people in suits and people I personally like. I didn't even know brokers existed. I think they play a pivotal role in the marketplace, but there just had been no innovation in the market. And so, having that key insight of like, there's nothing here for founders. Like there's nothing, there's stuff for buyers, but nothing specific to sellers and founders and putting them first. So our core purpose of MicroAcquire is to help entrepreneurs succeed. And our mission is to build the most founder-friendly startup acquisition marketplace. So every decision we make we ask ourselves as a team is, does this benefit buyers? Does this benefit sellers, being startups and founders? And that dictates pretty much everything that we do at the company.
You crowned the entrepreneurs in your marketplace. Then my question is the $10 a month, or no, sorry, I don't know how much you charged for the buyer to gain access to the founder. How much is that month?
$290 a year.
$290 a year? Yeah, perfect. And do you keep that, or does that does any of that go to the founders, or is that for the company?
So that is, it's for the buyers. They become a premium buyer at that point, and then they now have access to reach out to a founder.
Yeah.
And when they reach out to a founder will then get a message like, hey, I'm interested in your business. I have a few questions. And the founder can approve or deny that request. Meaning if they approve it, they get access. The buyer gets access to the company name, the P&L, any presentations we've created. But no money goes to the founders. To sell on MicroAcquire, it's 100% free. So over the weekend, we had an email come in. I took a nap and I wake up and this guy's like, oh, you made me a multi-millionaire. I sold my business for like 7 million cash. And I'm like, cool. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, like, I actually saw you share that on social. That's incredible.
Yeah, I love those emails. Like, I think people stop sending them to me as much because I think they see that I share them. Because like, but I blur out their name, and it's like you can't tell who it is. But yeah, those are by far, because it's so rewarding. It's like I think unless 5, 7 million isn't a lot to him, I'm hopeful I changed his life in a meaningful way, and that's a very rewarding part of the job.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think you just helped me think of my next tweet. So like it is truly a privilege to serve, these founders that build these like amazing niche, profitable bootstrap companies, no investors, like arming the rebels, like helping them, like giving them like another option to sell their business. Like that's my goal.
Awesome. Hey, Levi, do you want to jump on really quick?
Yeah. Andrew, thanks again for this. I enjoyed your podcast that you did with Sam and Sean over at My First Million Pod, and even the what is it, like the reverse SPAC, where you guys sort of crowdfunded or sort of group funded $100,000 to buy that business for the senior college student, soon to graduate. Just love that entire notion there.
Thanks,
my
man.
question is a little bit on like what's on the horizon, what's sort of like the next big thing, because I'm certain like you had talked about how like that experience was super painful in terms of the amount of work that was required, right? Like super great sort of PR and that, but there's a lot of work there. And I think through that, that's where you sometimes discover like the project roadmap in itself. And so I'd be curious to hear from MicroAcquire, like what's on the horizon, what's like something that, amazing that you guys will be announcing 6 months or 12 months from today.
Yeah, so we have a lot of ambitious plans. We want to rethink escrow. We want to rethink transferring assets. We want to rethink legal doc creation, so streamlining LOIs, NDAs, APAs. If you want to know what those means, those terms are just.
I know none of those terms.
Letter of intent, non-disclosure agreement, asset purchase agreement. Basically, like I would like to learn more about your company. I want to make an informal offer. I want to make a formal offer. I think there's a lot of easy ways to streamline that, but really what we want to become is the Zillow of M&A, where there's no MLS for all startups that are available for sale. So we want to work with brokers and investment bankers and M&A advisors and help them help other startups, and then potentially help them bring more eyes onto their deals. So deals that they're already representing, we're going to be allowing them to post those deals on MicroAcquire. Because again, we essentially have the largest database of software buyers in the world. And that aligns perfectly with our goal of helping more startups get acquired. So the M&A directory is the big focus right now. Secondary to that is data-driven valuation. So you have all these people, like I joke about it, but I've met 100+ SaaS valuation experts. Like this is it. This is how it's done. And it's backed up by nothing. Like, so we're bringing real data-driven valuations because the market's changed quarter by quarter. Like the valuation multiples I was seeing last year compared to this year, they've gone up a little bit. And some buyers are confused by that. They're like, why isn't this like 4 times profit? And it's like, can you please find me an asset that like has not increased in the last year? Like, and don't give me some witty answer like cash or something like that. But we're building out a tool similar to let's call it like ChartMogul or Barometrics, where you'll get full SaaS analytics. You can connect your billing system, and with that, we can basically go through your financials, and then we're piping in acquisition data from real acquisitions that have closed, not just this is kind of what we see in the market, but these are real deals. So we'll be able to give, a real-time valuation. So, you'll have, some free SaaS analytics. And then as you grow, you'll just have a big number that's like, hey, we think you'll probably sell your business for around this whenever you're ready. And then that's going to be integrated. That's going to be a separate product, and we're going to integrate that into MicroAcquire. And then third is LOI builder, where you can create your own LOI, where it says like 50% up front, 50% 90 days after closing, making that process really smooth and seamless so you can transact end to end on the platform. We're trying not to get too during our offsite, we had a session where, top 5 things accomplished, and I went over, we had 1 through 5, and I crossed out 2, 3, 4, and 5, said, this is our main focus. So we're trying to do few things really, really well, rather than a bunch of things just okay.
Thanks again for that. I feel like there's a chance here to, in a more recent episode that Sean attended, kind of like to create the grading term, right? Where it's like, to have sort of a MicroAcquire, like, kind of, you talk about MLS or like Pantone for like color grading, but to do that for like, hey, if you meet all these certain, data inputs, then this is sort of a MicroAcquire sort of listing or worthy listing type thing, if that made any sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. There's a lot of things that we're going to be doing to, I guess, bring, better clarity, like potential suggested, MicroAcquire valuation, because some founders go on there and they're like, ARR times 30. And we're like, all right, man, good luck. Because we're indifferent on the sale. We're not one. If you think your business is worth 30 million, we do try to guide founders as much as possible and educate them. We've written tons of guides on valuations. I've recorded, tutorials or course videos on valuations on what I see. But for some founders, that's what they'll sell for. And surprisingly, those deals close, like, usually from strategic buyers, because they're looking to buy the team and the IP. But yeah, I think, that's where we want to go next, is where we can, again, everything we want to do is directed towards helping more founders get acquired. And some founders don't understand that, having a ridiculous valuation is a great way to put buyers off immediately. It just shows that you're not serious, that you're just kind of throwing it up there like a Hail Mary, hoping someone somewhere will pay a ridiculous amount. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes like a very strategic company needs to fill a product gap very quickly, and for them, they can justify a multiple of that price, but typically not. So we're going to be adding like more tools that kind of guides a founder down a proper, how do you value your company? And that's going to start with the valuations tool.
We also get some reverse knowledge by like, how do you build your company to focus on the factors that will increase the valuation? You gotta like reverse it up. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the
Harder.
simple part there is just more revenue, more
Yeah,
growth.
I know that's the one, but like, what about these? Because they're pretty custom deals. Like, you can buy a startup for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, it is interesting. I guess you have the most amount of insight.
Yeah, it's tricky because even there's simple variables that are hard to track. Like, how involved are you in the business? If you left in 90 days, would everything break? How clean is the code? So there's some variables that we won't have immediately. So it won't be like this is exactly how much your startup is worth. It's more just, these are similar deals. Like, for example, if you're selling a B2B SaaS company, here's 10 SaaS companies that have sold. You can look at the listings. You can't see who the company actually is, but you can see, what their revenue was, what they sold for, to give like an idea of like, this is kind of the category you're in. But yeah, we also need to like work in like expenses like QuickBooks and like Xero. So we're not just seeing revenue, but we're also seeing expenses to see where if there's any opportunities like optimize, spend, all that fun stuff. So we got a lot of ambitious plans on that tool, because I think it'd be super helpful. Every founder wants to know like what my startup could be worth, and especially on a real-time basis with real-time data. I think that's going to be a complete game changer for the industry.
Me too.
Awesome. Well, I definitely want to be conscious of time here, but wow, this is really a great chat. And yeah, I've actually been through the acquisition process myself. So this is, definitely a big fan of what you're building, and it's certainly needed. Would have been helpful for myself too in the past. So just kind of last but not least, I did want to ask, what's one maybe interesting kind of story that you could share through a, maybe a startup that has been acquired through MicroAcquire?
I think my favorite one, and this was kind of the moment when this was maybe like a year ago. But there was a founder who built a platform. He was just graduating college, but he built a platform that helped other students practice for engineering tests at Google, Apple. I'm not an engineer, so I assume those tests are really, really hard. And he grew it to, let's call it like 700,000 revenue, like a significant business. And when he sold the business, he told me that he like paid off his mom's like mortgage. He paid off all student debt. That one for me was like, wow. Okay. So like, not to sound like Gavin Belson from Hooli, but like, we're making the world a better place. Like, we're helping these people like, and I was like, cool, man, congrats. I say a little bit more like, that's such a huge accomplishment. Congrats. Like, I'm so happy for you. But it's so rewarding. And maybe the first acquisition was really fun. I remember where I was in Hawaii, right when Tom Hanks got COVID. So that was weird. If you guys remember, that was like the day where everyone took it seriously. Like, oh, NBA is shutting down. Like, I had been watching COVID for a lot before that, but that was a moment where like everything was like, wow, Tom Hanks got it, so it's real. It's like, yeah, of course. Anyways, I was in Hawaii and I was hoping we'd get stuck there, but we didn't. And someone emailed me and they were just like, hey, I sold my business on MicroAcquire, because we didn't have mechanics to really track what's sold, what's not. It was very MVP-ish. And that one was really meaningful because I was like, wow. And he's like, yeah, I tried posting this on every other marketplace. I didn't really have any serious offers. And I sold this thing within a week. And I was like, it's working. Like, oh my gosh, it's working. Like, this is crazy. And then right after he emailed me, I had 2 emails from angry buyers saying like, we really wanted that deal. Like, what the heck? Like, And I'm like, wow, this is like, sorry you missed out on it. But that moment was, I think, special because that was the first, you always remember your first customer. So that one was, I think, pretty meaningful.
That's awesome. That's a great story. And that's a great way to wrap things up. Yeah. So thanks again for taking the time to join us here. Just kind of quick plug for the recording for those that don't follow you. Where should we keep up with you?
Yeah, if you want to give me a call, dial 911. They'll direct you. No, just kidding. Don't do that. Andrew at MicroAcquire. Throw me a follow on Twitter. Gazdecki. I tweet pretty often. My friends tell me I should stop. But yeah, if any of you ever need help as you're building your marketplace, I try to make myself. I'm extremely busy now, but if I don't have time, immediately, I always tell you, hey, let's connect in a few weeks. But if you guys have any questions about acquisitions, building marketplaces, growing SaaS, anything at all, I'd love to help. And congrats to all of you guys, all of you entrepreneurs. Respect.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks again for taking the time to join us here. This is a really great chat. So we appreciate it. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining in the questions.